about that? Well, thank you very much. I'm going to show you a couple of slides, not to bore you too much about the science, but I think as a scientist you should show a bit of what has been done and what should be done in future. And of course this award is just the most fantastic award in the world because it's about daylight. Every biologist and every architect should dream of getting this award because it's bridging disciplines, and it is what I just said. It's making the world aware that we should create our environment towards our biology and not the other way around. And that I'm very thankful for this award. So the importance of daylight for health. I'm now working together with AI always for several reasons. First of all, because it's sometimes very funny what AI does when you tell it to do something. And secondly, the pictures you create with AI have no copyright difficulties. So here is how AI sees the world if you tell it to show the world with sun and day and night and so forth. The continents are very, very imaginary, but it's fun. But what I wanted to say, daylight it never comes alone. Because biology has adapted to both daylight, and I invent a new word here put together, and that is night-dark. So if we have daylight in one word, you also can have night dark in one word, and they're yin and yang of biology, and therefore I am also, in Lausanne I once gave a talk in complete darkness, because without slides of course, because I wanted to make people understand that they can actually listen to information without having to see anything. So the importance of daylight for health mainly in many instances goes via the circadian system. And the circadian system in humans and in other mammals has a central spot and is called the SCN. It's a nucleus above the optic of the crossing of the optic nerve. And in the old days, when we were very hierarchical, we said it's the master clock. I always say it's not the master clock. It serves all the clocks in the body. It gives them the information from the outside. It looks outside through the eyes. It gets information about light and darkness. And now it has information, and it gives it into the bloodstream or into the nervous system. And now every other organ and every cell in your body has a clock. Every other organ can listen to the internal sun, and therefore I always say that the SCN is the internal sun. And they make sure that the entire clockwork of orchestra of clocks in the body is optimally entrained, synchronized to the light-dark cycle. So a well-entrained clock system is essential for health. This is what I call my paper patchwork. I used to go to conferences where people get awards and then they show one paper cover after the other. And I find that a bit boring, and therefore I've just put them all into one slide and then we can get it over with. But there's one paper which has already had been mentioned, and that is, of course at the time I didn't realize that, is the most influential one, because what it did, it created a term that came out of observations, and the term was social jet lag, and again, the image is created by an AI, and it's very interesting because the first couple of images, I wanted somebody in a nightgown, and they gave me an Arab. So it's really quite remarkable to interact with AI. So here you see people who live in 2 time zones, and that is your biological time zone and your social time zone, and they don't always interact or are not synchronous at all. So they live in different time zones. And social jet lag is defined, as you've heard, as between the sleep timing of work days, representing predominantly the social clock, and that on work-free days representing predominantly what your biology wants, if your parents let you do it. And when we introduced the term in 2006, it didn't exist. And within 3 weeks, we had 85,000 hits on the internet. Because what happened is we gave people a name for something that they knew they suffered from. And if you give people a name, they will use it if they can associate with what it does. Today in PubMed, there are over way over 600 papers that specifically peer-reviewed scientific papers show an association between social jet lag and health or health deficits. So let's take chronobiology, and this is what I've tried to do the last 15 years, out of the lab into real life, because it's, as Johannes said, it's a quantitative discipline. We have to quantify, but quantifying everything in isolation is not the best thing to do. So what we do is we give these things to people, which are called activities, and they record activity as you've seen every day, and now we double plot them so we can see what's happening over the midnight. And of course, once we know where the recording was made and what day it is, we can add the photo period from sunrise to sunset, here shown in the yellow background. And since we are also recording light, we can now use mathematical tricks or algorithms to predict where, from day to day, your internal clock is going to move. So this is all quantifying real data, and it's going to be useful for the diagnosis of people who have difficulties. Because now we can quantify how often they sleep in this window, because if we take the activity, we can also deduct or conclude where people will sleep. And then you can say how often can this person, and this person can sleep relatively often in his or her, in this case, his biological sleeping window. And of course, this is all biology, but now we look at how the interaction between the social world and the biological world is. And what you see here in green are the work-free days, and in red, sleep on work days. And you can see immediately that this person has to get up, despite the fact he works very late, still has to get up very early on a work day, and of course has a sleep deficit and now sleeps in. Not because it's lazy, but we need sleep to be optimally awake, and sleeps in on 3 days. It suffers from social jet lag, which is the typical sign for social jet lag, is this scalloping between short and early to longer and late. And that's why we call it social jet lag, because it looks like this person flies to the United States on a Friday evening and comes back to Europe on a Monday morning. But he never leaves where he lives. So what you can see here is that on work-free days, he starts sleeping at the projected onset of the sleep window, and on work days, he tries to sleep earlier, but he always wakes up. He only sleeps through once he gets into his biological sleep window. So all of these things can be used now to diagnose the life of people. We can accompany with these measurement methods. We can accompany studies. We can accompany the successive interventions and so forth, because we can measure a myriad of different variables and compare them. But we can go further, because since we have knowledge about light, we now can invent light profiles. We can say, this is when this person worked, probably inside. We can ask people when they work, whether they take a bike or a bus to work, and so forth. And so we can guess what light levels these people can get. And then we can show that something's wrong here. Oh, no. This not real person, we can accompany for 12 weeks in April and July in the Northern Hemisphere. So you can see simulations can go into the future. So we are somewhere here at the top, and we're going where this person has already been. And of course, we can say this person has a 9-to-5 job. It's a late type, like the real person you saw in the last slides. But this person now can't work late. It has to do a 9-to-5 job. And we can assess where this person would be. And the social jet lag, of course, in this case, is huge. Now, since we are free, since we have imaginary data, we now can say what would happen if this person would go in to work with a bike instead of a bus, or what would happen if this person wouldn't work from 9 to 5, but simply work later, from 11 to 19. And of course, you can model all this, and then the light profiles would change, and you can model that in this case the social jet lag would be greatly reduced and this person would sleep much longer. Now this is future, because now we can say architects and other people should give us data, and this is all dependent on the chronotype of the individual. All these modelings are depend on the chronotype. So these models can answer important questions and will lead to experiments by making hypotheses. So the experiment, the simulation says, we believe that this would happen if we changed that and this. And now we can go out and do the experiment and say, is this really true? We can validate what the model says, and we can optimize the model with all those findings. And the key questions are to optimize circadian entrainment and sleep, of course. And we should, when should individuals or groups of individuals be exposed to more light or more darkness? What color temperature should this light have? What should the optimal work schedules, even for the poor shift workers, look like? We have a group here of more younger or more older people. We can chronotype them, and then we can model which is the most invasive, or better, which is the least invasive shift schedule that we can give these people on a very individual or a very, very specific group level. So we have a growing actimetry base, that's real data, and then the simulating models can learn, and their outputs can interact with the real world, and that is shift planners, architects, and other people who should, as I said, be very interested in the biology. Thank you very much.